Hi guys, my name is Nora. I have a very rare genetic condition. When I tell you what it is, you might find it appealing. You might even wish you had it. But once you hear the whole story, you'll know that it's not something to wish for. That's because reaching my age with this condition is considered unusually successful. The formal name of my condition is congenital insensitivity to pain. It means that I don't feel pain. I don't feel any aches either. For example, if someone stands on my foot, I won't feel it. It doesn't hurt if you stick a needle in my arm. I never get headaches. It doesn't hurt if I accidentally cut myself while making food. When you hear all this, it sounds like a superpower, but it really isn't like that. Pain and aches are vital for our health. Let me tell you about something that happened last year. One evening, I got out of the shower. I realized my skin was all red when I was drying my hair. It turns out that the water was too hot when I was showering. I didn't notice it because I didn't feel any pain. I had second-degree burns on my back, my arms, my neck. The next day, I had blisters everywhere. If I could feel pain, I would have felt that the water was too hot and I wouldn't have been burned. As you can see, feeling pain helps us protect ourselves. We're too vulnerable without it. This is a bit embarrassing, but let me tell you something interesting. I can't feel it when I have to pee, so I always go to the bathroom at the same time every day. My body is used to it now. If I don't follow the schedule, I don't feel anything, even when my bladder is about to burst. I can only tell when I start peeing myself. So I set alarms to remind myself to go to the bathroom. I know it's a bit gross, but I wanted to make sure you understand my situation. So if I don't know when I need to pee, does that mean I don't feel hunger? Luckily, that's not a problem. Hunger and feeling full is controlled by a different mechanism in the body. So I can feel it when I'm hungry or when I get full when I'm eating. I feel especially lucky that I can feel fullness. Otherwise, I would eat all the time and gain too much weight. A problem I might have in the future is about giving birth. Women can tell that they're about to give birth because of the pain they feel. As you can guess, people like me don't feel such pain either. That might sound good to you as well. What more do you want? You can give birth without pain, you might say. However, a mother has to push in order to give birth. But if you can't feel labor pain from the contractions, you don't know that you need to push. So I probably won't be able to give birth naturally. I'll have to give birth with a C-section. That's the future, though. I actually want to talk more about what I'm going through now. You know what the most common problem I have in my daily life is? Biting the inside of my cheek when eating. You don't do it as often as I do, because you know that it will hurt based on your past experiences. I've never felt pain, so I don't have that experience. That's why I often bite my cheek or tongue when eating. Sometimes I end up with a mouth full of blood, so I have to stop eating and wash my mouth. That's actually how I was diagnosed. When my teeth first came out, I started eating my tongue. I kept biting it, so my mouth was always filled with blood. When my mom told the doctor, he said this wasn't normal at all. They didn't know what was wrong at first because it's such a rare condition. Then they ran some tests. They figured it out when they realized that I don't feel pain. My mom always says that for her, the hardest part was when I was a baby. For example, I would be taking an afternoon nap, then my mom would see that my eyes were all purple when I woke up. Turns out I was pressing too hard when rubbing my eyes. I still have a lot of problems today, but at least my parents don't have to deal with it. So many things happened when I was in primary school. You're too young to protect yourself at that age. For example, I really wanted to skate. I begged her, but of course my mom didn't get me rollerblades. So one day, I borrowed my friend's rollerblades and went skating. When I came home, my left arm was hanging really low. I had fallen on it when I was skating. I didn't feel any pain, so I didn't know that it was broken. So I kept on skating as if nothing had happened. And fell on it a second time. If I remember correctly, I broke my arm in 6 places. Usually it takes 1 month for a broken bone to heal in kids, but I had to wear a cast for 4 months. Around that age, another crazy thing happened. I always used to have bruises all over my body. And a bandage on my arm, my leg, and even my head. One of the neighbors noticed this. She watched me for a while. She thought that there must be violence in my home for me to have so many bruises, and called the cops. 2 social workers came to our home. My parents showed the doctor's reports, so everything was okay. It's kind of tragic, but we laugh about it whenever we talk about it. I've mentioned all the downsides. Are there any benefits to not feeling pain? Maybe, but I've never explored them. Remember when it was super trendy to eat the world's spiciest pepper on YouTube? Those videos got millions of views. People made a lot of money like this. If I wanted to, I could have eaten the spiciest pepper in the galaxy. I could have been a guest on a YouTube channel without telling anyone about my condition. I could have even started my own channel after I got famous as a guest. I would have made a ton of money. I'm just joking. Don't let this video fool you. I don't really like being in front of the camera. Anyway, I don't want to make money out of something that makes my life really hard. I read somewhere that a guy in India makes a living because of this condition. He performs on the streets, sticking skewers in his body, walking on fire, and letting cars drive over his feet. Even though he doesn't feel pain, these are all really risky. He could easily harm himself. People like me live lives of danger. Why make it more dangerous with stunts like this? Unfortunately, people with my condition have a short lifespan. I've already told you so many things, so now you're aware of it too. At any time, I could go through any one of hundreds of issues. Like a heart attack. Heart attacks have some signs. If you feel chest pain, you know that you need to go to a hospital straight away. So the doctors can intervene before you have a heart attack. I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't feel any chest pain, so I would only know that I was having a heart attack once it actually began. But there is one thing about my condition that I am grateful for. I don't have to go through period pains. My mom has terrible period pains. Her pains begin days before her period and they continue for days. If I could feel pain, I'm pretty sure I'd suffer like my mom. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that. The other thing that I really like is that I don't ever get itchy. Some people with this condition don't feel itchiness either. I'm one of those people. I've never scratched an itch to this day. No matter how many mosquitoes bite me, I don't itch. Even if the bitten area gets red or swollen, I never feel like scratching it. It's funny though because mosquitoes love me. If there are 10 people in a room, I'm the one they'll bite. If I could feel itching, then I'd be in big trouble. I guess this is how the negative parts kind of get balanced. The more I tell you about the advantages of my condition, the more I remember. Like, I don't sweat, even when it's really hot. What does that have to do with pain, you might wonder? You're right. But for some reason, people with this condition don't sweat, so I don't have to think if I smell bad. I've never spent money on deodorant in my life. My doctor has been following my condition for years now. One day he said, "The only pain you'll ever go through is heartbreak." But I haven't fallen in love yet. I know it's really stupid, but I dream of falling in love with someone, and I want that person to leave me, so that I can experience heartbreak like my doctor said. I've read about it online, and many people say that heartbreak feels like physical pain. This is the only chance I have to experience pain. Who knows? Maybe I will eventually experience it. Lastly, I must talk about this. Is there a cure for this condition? Sadly, no. But we do know the reasons and circumstances under which it's seen. So it might be possible to find a cure. However, only a few people in the world have the condition. The exact number isn't known, but it's probably less than 500. For pharmaceutical companies, fewer patients means less money, so nobody puts aside financial resources to find the cure. You know, the cure to many conditions is found through scientific research. It takes years for that research to become medicine. Maybe they'll find something in the future, but there's nothing now. Thank you for listening to me. Now you know my entire story. Now tell me, would you like to be in my position? Please tell me in the comments what you think. If you want to watch interesting stories about people, subscribe to the channel. If you have an interesting story, email it to us. Our email address is linked in the description box. Bye!
Hi everyone, my name is Alex. If you have an attic in your house, you might look at it differently after the story I'm about to tell you. I've always had a thing for horror movies. Even when I was a kid, I used to secretly watch horror movies after my parents went to bed. Of course, I would have trouble sleeping afterwards. The ones that got me the most were the haunted house movies. I would even feel sad because we lived in an apartment. I thought, I wish we lived in a house. Then maybe we would have stuff like this happening in our house too. Years later, my wish came true, and I came to realize it wasn't something to wish for. It had only been a few weeks since we moved into our current house. We started living in a single-family home just like I'd been dreaming of, but I wasn't expecting scary things to happen, because I was old enough to know haunted house stories weren't real. Around that time, my parents won an amazing vacation in a charity raffle. They were going on a luxury cruise that would take them to 15 countries. This vacation was the big prize in the raffle. Normally, my folks could never have gone on an expensive trip like this. Still, they were hesitant at first. They only won 2 tickets. I wouldn't be able to go with them. To convince my parents to go, I told them, I'm 17 now. I'm starting college next year. You need to learn to trust me. You have to accept that I'm a grown-up now. They agreed with me. So this is how I got to stay home alone for so long for the first time in my life. By the way, our house has 3 floors. The top floor is the attic. My room is below it. It has that little hatch in the ceiling which you open to go up into the attic. I had no idea what the attic even looked like. I'd never gone up there since there was no ladder. It was the evening after my parents had left. I'd gotten up really early to say goodbye to them, so I fell asleep even before eating dinner. I woke up hungry in the middle of the night. Just as I was thinking, I need to get up and get a snack, I heard some noises coming from the ceiling, or rather from the attic. It sounded like someone was walking, but I couldn't really tell because I was still half asleep. I listened closely. Yes, someone was definitely walking. Then I heard another noise. It was as if something was being dragged across the floor. I was super scared. Next came something like the sound of a small chain jangling. I jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. Could this house be haunted? I knew it was a ridiculous thought, but it was the only thing on my mind as I was running. After I made it downstairs, I held my breath and listened again. I couldn't hear anything from there. It was too far away. I thought, should I call the police? But this was a very old house. It could be a big mouse up there, or even the sound of the floorboards expanding. If the cops came and they couldn't find anything and then my parents found out about this, they would say, we thought you were a grown-up. You heard sounds and called the police on your first night. And they wouldn't trust me again. I decided not to call the police, but because I was nervous, I couldn't get any sleep. I sat listening to what was going on upstairs. How would I spend 15 days alone in this house? I was working part-time in a store to keep myself busy during the summer break. I got off work at 4 p.m. When I came home, I decided to climb up into the attic to check out if anything weird was going on. But how was I supposed to get up there? Did we have a ladder? Yes, we did. I found a small ladder in the garage. I brought it to my room. It was tall enough for me to reach the ceiling. I opened the hatch, I climbed up, and looked inside. It was the first time I was seeing the attic. It looked like my parents had never gotten up there either. Everything was covered in dust. There were untouched spider webs everywhere. I couldn't see too far into it since it was darker in the corners. I turned on my phone's flashlight and held it there. There was no trace of a human being having been up here last night. I figured I probably wasn't fully awake and thought the sounds in my dream were real. I was so relieved after seeing the attic, it was pointless to worry now. I even watched a horror movie to prove to myself that I wasn't scared. And I went to sleep after finishing the movie. I slept like a baby all night. When I woke up in the morning, the only thing I thought of was, what am I having for breakfast? I spent the following day without any problems. My concerns about the attic had completely vanished. That is, I thought they had. I wasn't working on the weekends. I woke up pretty late that Saturday. When I went into the bathroom, I noticed the light was on. I was thinking, I must have left it on, when I saw a shiny ring on the floor. Where did it come from? I picked it up. It looked very expensive. There was no way a ring this expensive could have been my mom's. Suddenly, I felt my blood curdle. I thought it had been a guy, but what if it had been a woman in the attic that night? Did she come back while I was asleep and walked around the house this time? But the only way to the attic is through my room. It would have been impossible for someone to get in or out without waking me up. I couldn't think of a reasonable explanation at that moment. All I could say was, this doesn't make any sense. There was nothing to steal here, but I still quickly checked the house. Everything seemed in its place. Or was I completely wrong? Could it be that someone came to visit my mom and dropped their ring? But I'd been using that bathroom for the past week. Surely I would have seen a ring this big. I wasn't able to figure it out yet, but there was something going on. I made a plan, but it wasn't something I could pull off on my own. I called my best friends, Luke and Matt. I told them it was something very important and asked them to come over for the night. When they came, I told them all about what had happened. Matt had a relative who worked at a jewelry shop. He took a picture of the ring and sent it to her. She told him, I'd need to see it in person, but it looks like a diamond ring expensive enough to cover your and your sister's college tuition. Luke had made fun of me at first, but after hearing that, he was also convinced that something weird was going on. We waited until it got really late. Then we started executing our plan. I have a small tripod. I started a live stream from the YouTube app on my phone. I set up the phone on the tripod. I climbed up the ladder and opened the hatch. I placed the tripod with the phone attached to it on the floor of the attic. There was no lamp in the attic, but the moonlight coming in through the roof provided enough light. Next came the second phase of the plan. We went down into the basement just in case. We started watching the live stream from my laptop. More than an hour passed. We were glued to the screen, but nothing was happening. We all got tired and sleepy from staring at the nothingness. I had to find a solution. I thought we could stay awake if we played a board game. I went up to my room. Just as I was picking up the game, I heard a noise from the attic. I held my breath and listened. It wasn't as clear as it was that first night, but there was definitely some kind of movement up there. I left the game there and ran to my friends in a panic. When I got downstairs, I saw that they were both sitting with their eyes closed. They had fallen asleep. I said, "Wake up! There's someone in the attic," trying to keep my voice down. We all looked at the screen at the same time. We all saw it. A shadow was moving in the attic. It wasn't close to the hatch. It was further away. Luke said, "This doesn't look like a woman." But the attic was so dark, it was impossible to tell for sure. It was time for phase 3 of the plan. Calling 911. We couldn't look away from the screen. We weren't scared because there were 3 of us, but could this man or woman be armed? I nodded toward the front yard. "Let's call them from outside," I said. "If anything happened, it will be easier to run away." There was a police station nearby. A few minutes after we called 911, we were in the front yard staring at the screen with 2 cops. They were also sure there was someone in the attic now. They debated whether to ask for backup. One of the cops said, we could lose them while waiting for backup. They turned on their flashlights. They went into the house very carefully. We were very excited to be watching it all live via YouTube. We were expecting an operation like in the movies, but it didn't turn out that way. We'd left the ladder we used to go up into the attic there. The cops used it to climb up. On the screen, we first saw the light from the flashlight and then the head of one of the cops. The attic was now fully lit. Right in the corner, a man stood completely frozen. There was a bag in front of him. The officer yelled, "Police, sit down where you are. Put your hands above your head." The man did as he was told without saying a word. So, who was the man in the attic? And more importantly, what was he doing up there? According to the police, this man was the most brilliant thief in town. He only broke into rich people's houses and stole only jewelry. His sister had lived in our house about 10 years ago. Whenever he came to visit her, he climbed the tree next to the house to get into the attic. He made a secret compartment inside a wall. He was keeping some of the jewelry he stole in there. One day when he decided to stop being a thief, he was planning to sell his hidden jewelry stash and start a new life in another country. However, he got caught in a wealthy person's house in the middle of a burglary. He had been in jail for years. He finished serving his sentence the previous week. The first thing he did after being released from prison was visit his hiding place, which is our attic. This guy was taking some of the jewelry from the attic and selling it piece by piece. If he sold it all at the same time, the mafia would have heard about it since it was stolen. As you might have guessed, the ring I found in the bathroom was his too. That night when he came to pick up jewelry, he had to use the toilet really badly. The guy is the smartest thief in town. He spent his whole life breaking into other people's homes, so he was really comfortable entering our house from the attic and using our bathroom. He must have dropped the ring as he was pulling up his pants. I didn't want to upset my parents, so I told them everything only after they came back. Naturally, they were really shocked, but they were more upset that I had to go through this while they were away. They vowed not to leave me home alone ever again.